Greetings, Microscopists! I'm sure you're familiar with this classic from 2002, Spider-Man, starring Tobey Maguire. So Peter Parker and all these other people who are totally high schoolers and not in their mid-20s are getting a tour of Oscorp's fancy science lab place. Peter remarks that this giant thing in the middle of the room is the largest electron microscope on the eastern seaboard. Peter then gets bullied and tries to take a derpy picture of Mary Jane when he receives his fateful spider bite. So this is an odd scene. Just looking at this place, my initial reaction is that it looks like a fancy library more than any laboratory I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the problems here are probably too many to count, but let's just rattle off a few. First, why are all these different lab areas all in this one huge room? That is wildly impractical. You need counter space to be able to work, and you need electrical and gas connections to do most of that work, none of which you're going to be getting in this monster space. Not only that, but it seems that there's a ton of different work being done by different research groups here. That is a bit unusual. Usually, to do your specific brand of research, you would have your own space with your own instruments to do your specialty work. There may be shared spaces where people from different research or work groups might use shared instrumentation, but that is not what is happening in this room. So let's take a look at this microscope. First, there's no way this is a real electron microscope. It is way too big, not only in height, but in girth. So what else can we see of this thing? We see multiple workstations around here. In 2002, digital cameras were a new thing on TEMs, but even big fancy TEMs still relied on a phosphorus screen, which we do not see anywhere here, which is good because they would be completely unusable in this brightly lit room. These instruments also are very sensitive to vibration, making the amount of foot traffic in here completely ludicrous, even for a normal TEM. So you might ask, what did a super TEM look like in 2002? Well, in 2007, I had the opportunity to visit the Lawrence Berkeley labs on top of the hills above Berkeley. They had two monster JEOL TEMs there. One was a 1.5 million volts, which had just been decommissioned, and one was a 1 million volt microscope, which I was able to see. It had its own 3-story building, with the bottom floor being vibration dampening, the second floor being the microscope, and the top floor being the high voltage tank and other equipment. It was so sensitive that when the wind would blow in an unusual direction and cause the waves to hit the shoreline in a particular way, 80 miles away in Santa Cruz, it would cause a vibration strong enough that you could see it in this microscope. Now, giant million-volt microscopes like this quickly died off when aberration-corrected lenses became a thing, about this time in the late 2000s. Nowadays, the best electron microscopes in the world are only slightly larger than their normal day-to-day counterparts, like this one at Harvard called the Megascope. So, in this Spider-Man movie, what is the deal with this room and this giant plastic thing calling itself a TEM? You might be surprised to learn that this interior set is not in New York, but in California at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles. Here is how the room appears normally, and you can immediately see what the deal is. This giant statue in the middle of the room had to be covered up somehow. And while I don't know for certain, I'm going to guess that the conversation about it went something like this. Well, we could put a huge plastic cylinder around it to hide it. Great! Well, what's tall and cylindrical and science-y? An electron microscope? Genius! We'll do that! Anyway, that's my guess as to how this came about. So is this realistic in any sort of way? No. Is it a good way to hide a giant statue in the middle of the room you want to film in? I mean, I could think of worse ways to do it. So how would I rate it? I would say this is bad. This room is ridiculous. This fake microscope is ridiculous. It's not great. Now, if you know of any scenes in movies or television where an electron microscope appears, let me know about it in the comments. This is Eric Miller from Instructinate. Like, subscribe, share it with all your microscope buddies, and we will see you next time. Thanks.